Historical data is the basis by which we have to look at.
It's still a relatively young technology, but cloud applications are starting to have real value in supply chain. That's the topic of my discussion today with Tom French. He is Chief Executive Officer of Supply Chain Coach. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us and being back with us, as a matter of fact. Let's talk about cloud-based software for the supply chain. Specifically, what do you see as the benefits of that technology?
Well, the benefits are pretty simple. That when you look at cloud, what happens to happen is the technology company has to really figure out how they're going to get multi-tenants on one server. So in order to do that, they have to make it so that each of those clients are able to configure their software to work for their business application. There are two different types of clouds. One is where actually they put it on a server, but it's by itself. And it's what normally would be put into a client base anyway, a client's application, but it's put in the cloud. That's not really where most people should go, because to set that up requires programming and changes in the program in itself to make it work. When you configure a program, it means that you get to choose what parts of that program you want to use, and you're able to set it up and make it work based on your flow process by configuration, not programming.
Mm-hmm. So let's back up a little bit and talk about historical data and how that's used in mapping future strategies. Can you kind of put that in perspective for me against the backdrop of cloud technology?
Yeah, historical data is the basis by which we have to look at what they should be doing. So when we look at both inventory and transportation data, it really gives us a footprint of what that customer is doing. It tells us where their inbound is coming from, where their intermediate stops are in the raw material, whether it be work in process. It shows us where they're manufacturing or contract manufacturing in some cases. It also tells us where their distribution sites or wholesale sites are, and then finally to the consumer, the end user. So that data really gives us a pretty clear roadmap of what they're doing and how they're going about doing it. Through that, we can look to see what are their efficiencies. Are they having efficiencies in what they're doing or not? And we can usually see that either in rates or in processes, and then figure out concepts that we could bring to the table that could really offer them a solution to be better at what they do, either faster service to the customer or lower cost.
Are any companies finding it a challenge to get that historical data in a timely and accurate fashion?
Timely and accurate are the two big constraints. Most companies, manufacturers particularly is the one that I think benefits most by this, do not capture it to the detail that you would really want to get it to in order to do this correctly. And there's two parts to that. One is the transportation cost, because transportation being 2/3 the cost of distribution is very important and a huge factor in trying to create savings. The other is inventory and inventory turns. So the minute you place an order for a purchase order to the minute it's consumed by the consumer, what is that cycle time from one to the other? And the goal is to continue to reduce that cycle time, and it reduces all, including costs.
I want to talk a little bit more about what you were saying about configurable software. What is the value and the importance of that, and against the backdrop of what we're talking about today?
So configurable allows us to go in and say, here's the business process and the business acumen that we want to get to, and we can configure it to make it work within the software. So software is a tool, not the end to the means. So what we're going to be able to do is set that up, but year over year we're going to find new things we should be doing to continue to improve that process. And by having configurability, we don't have to reprogram, we just have to change what it is we're doing within the configuration of the program.
Configurable to meet the changing needs of that company, but also configurable for that company as distinct from other companies that might be sharing that application in the cloud.
Correct.
So the cloud does not mean that everybody is dipping into the exact same software. It's just as easy to configure as it was for a client-server type of setup?
Yeah, so configurability in this case really allows particularly 3PLs to set up multiple companies within their system on a different process, because they can have the application for what they're doing and have that hierarchy set up so that they can configure each separately and differently.
Yeah. But no system stands alone, as we know. Every supply chain involves multiple systems who have to play nice with one another. So what are the challenges out there you see right now about integrating these IT systems?
It's a lot less complicated than it used to be. I mean, there's still some applications that are more complicated, but when you look at it, you want to be able to integrate all. And you really want to go to software companies who are experts in their field. You want to look at a transportation management software, and that's what they do. They know it well, they live in it, they work hard in it. You want to look at WMS, warehouse management software, and make sure you're with a company that really understands warehouse management and all the configurations within it. If it's CRM, same thing. So all of those applications need to talk to each other in order to pass data from one to the other.
Do they talk to each other by virtue of another system that sits on top of them, or do they talk to each other by virtue of integrations between systems like programming interfaces that tie them all together in one big bundle? How does it work?
More of it is integration between. So the web is becoming really unique in what people can do, and it's also complicated because when you're over the web, it makes it more difficult to do some of the real-time stuff as opposed to what you're doing when you have the server in your own warehouse, for an example. So, but they're all getting better and better at what they're doing, and cloud is just developing completely. So we believe that companies should only look at cloud because, one, it's less cost to implement, and it's less cost to own, because you can own it on a monthly basis subscription, or you can buy a license if you choose to want to go down that route.
Okay, well, let's. You said just developing, so I take it to mean that cloud technology has not fully arrived, or is it truly ready for prime time?
Well, different applications are at different levels. I believe the TMS is pretty well developed today and continuing to develop. There's still applications that still need a lot of work. But in the warehouse management software part, there's not very many players yet, but there will be. As this develops and more customers choose to want to use it, we'll see more of that capability starting to occur. But currently today, it's still a pretty limited field.
Why has WMS been slow in adopting the cloud?
Because it's usually in a four-wall situation. When you start looking at it where you're taking outside of a four-wall, and if you have multiple ERPs because you're a growing company and you're buying companies, how do we get visibility of all the inventory items across all different ERPs? Very difficult. If you put WMS over it in the cloud, you can accomplish it.
Are there any particular processes or functions within a company that do not lend themselves to a cloud approach?
So far, we haven't been challenged by it. We've been challenged by having to go out and get a technology to bolt onto it. But in terms of what we touch and what we do, we've been pretty successful in getting those to work fairly.
Because as you say, WMS is coming up to speed. ERP is in the cloud now.
Correct.
That's a very complex system that
Yes.
a lot of companies might have been previously nervous about having off their site.
Yes.
Have all the security concerns been properly addressed?
So far, we have seen no signs of security issues on any of the people that we work with. So I believe they have been.
Yeah, and what about consistency? Companies still worry about losing connection with it, about outages, about being frozen and paralyzed by the lack of access to their systems. Is that a true concern now or not?
Not really. Redundancy seems to be the application that all the software companies are going to. So if one comes down, it's up on another one immediately. We see very little. In fact, I can't even remember the last time we've seen an interruption.
So you are saying that the future looks good for cloud technology and that companies really ought to be looking exclusively to that in terms of new systems and installation of supply chain software.
So I would say it's certainly a big value that they ought to consider when they're looking at what they're going to do. I'm not sure it's going to be good for everyone, but everyone so far that I've been involved with, it is a great solution.
Great. Tom, thank you so much for helping us to understand this new concept, still new to many people, with what sounds like a great future. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I've been speaking with Tom French, a supply chain coach. Thank you very much for watching.